What's up, vinyl community? Beach Boys fans, random people on the internet. This is an album review for the Beach Boys Holland album. And it's been a long time since I've done an album review in my series of trying to talk about albums that don't get discussed a whole lot or are underrated or I feel deserve a little bit more credit than they have gotten in the past. Maybe they've been treated unfairly or something. This album, the Beach Boys Holland, I have nothing but mostly good things to say about this album. I first heard it probably 10 years ago, maybe. It's been a long time since I've been into it. Oh, I've been listening to it for a long time. And I feel like this album is an artistic triumph for them in an era where they are going through a lot of transitioning and sort of refining their path. And I feel like a lot of the songs discuss themes that similarly run congruent with what they were going through. So I'm going to do like a small track by track analysis of each song, and then I'll also incorporate some history. But to start off with, in 1972 the Beach Boys put out an album called So Tough, which was sub-banned by Carl and the Passions, which was an early band name of one of Carl's bands in the Beach Boys. And that album came out to really mixed reviews. It had some decent songs on it, but overall it was seen as kind of like a mess, a mixed bag of sorts, and it wasn't really taken as seriously as maybe it would be viewed now. So Jack Riley, the band's manager at that time, said, hey, let's do something different, let's change it up. Let's go to the Netherlands and record an album out there. He thought maybe that would spur some inspiration and try to get Brian out of his funk. Brian at this point had been really into cocaine, and his other pursuits were different projects. He wasn't interested in the Beach Boys at this point in his life. He had a group called American Spring, which featured his wife, Marilyn, and he was putting a lot of his time into that kind of stuff. He wasn't really into the Beach Boys, and they took like several attempts to get him on the plane to go to the Netherlands, and eventually he did. So they get over to the Netherlands, and they come up with some of the songs on this album. Most of the songs on this album, two were written back in Los Angeles when they got home. They made this whole album, and they were pretty proud of it, and they played it for Warner Brothers, and Warner was like, nope, not gonna fly, we're not putting this thing out, there's no single potential on it, it's not gonna be a hit, we want hits. So at the last minute, Brian discovered his old song, Sail On Sailor, that he'd written with Van Dyke Parks and a couple other guys. And they went to the studio, banged it out, and it was instantly, you can tell it was a good song, it was a smash. I mean, it wasn't a smash in the sense it was a #1, but it was a really strong song. That song for me is just a determined effort with its rowing, chugging rhythm, never giving up, never persevering, which is reflected in the lyrics as well. This ass-kicking, don't get down attitude of, yeah, life's hard, but sail on, it's gonna be okay. And also something I never noticed before, but SOS, sail on sailor, save our ship. Think about that one. Steamboat. This song is an absolute killer. Dennis wrote this one, Carl sings it, and it creates an atmosphere on this album that isn't like any of the other songs. It's got this sleepy ship lost at sea, lost at night feel to it. You just get this rowing, chugging steamboat moving aimlessly towards the middle of nowhere. And then it just kind of breaks into this really eerie guitar work. This guitar solo that comes out of nowhere, and it's very striking because of how minimal the rest of the song is. Very effective. And then the song fades out at the end, which is even better because we don't get an answer. Where's the steamboat going? Where's this person's life heading? Anyway, they got to Holland, they wrote all these songs, and they came up with something that a lot of people are calling the centerpiece of this album, the California Saga. For me, that's probably one of the weakest points in this album. It's good, but definitely not my favorite. Some people really enjoy it. Um, when I saw the Beach Boys live a few years ago, they sang "On My Way to California." That was kind of cool to see that live, I have to admit. But the song "Big Sur," Mike had for a couple of years now at that point. And then they did this poetry by a guy named Jeffers, "Beaks of Eagles," as the second part of that. That's a little hard to get into because it's kind of this obscure surrealist poem. But then it breaks back into more of a Beach Boys song with "On My Way to Sunny California." Not bad, not bad. Not my favorite part, but not bad. Side 2 opens with "The Traitor," which is an unbelievably great. So great, I can't form sentences. It's a song by Carl, and I've read on various pages online and different books, it's either his son Jonah or his son Justin who sings or says hi in the beginning, and I can't find a straight answer as to who's who. But this is another song that emphasizes that yearning feel that this album has. This steady rhythm, this steady chugging, reflective, yearning feel. And I think that's reflective of the band at its time. At this point in their career, they added 2 new guys from a band called Flame, Ricky Furtar and Blondie Chaplin. Famously, I don't know famously, but Ricky went on to later become one of the Ruddles, so that's pretty cool. And their added addition to this band, I think, was well needed. It gave them a whole different vibe, and for a time when this band was trying to figure out who they were and what they were in the music world, it's effective. And this era is certainly forgotten about by the common core of music fans, I'd say. And because you think the Beach Boys, you think Fun in the Sun, early '60s pop stuff. You don't think Steamboat. You should. It's some good stuff. Which leads to the next song, "Leaving This Town." Ricky and Blondie wrote that one together. It's a beautiful, soulful ballad that has this shift in the middle that goes into this synth solo moog bass thing going on with bongos, and creates this riff that, it's a song about, from what I can take from it, it's about a guy trying to figure out where he is in life and his relationships, and figuring out if he should stay where he is or go. Should he move on to do something else, or is this girl really interested in him? And he's trying to figure that out. And the two dynamics of the music together, really effective. "Only With You," that song is absolutely amazing. That's a Dennis and Mike collaboration, which is probably one of the rare times they did that. Mike wrote the words, Dennis wrote the music, and then they probably collaborated on both. But "Only With You" is just an absolutely beautiful song, and it sticks out like a very happy sore thumb because it's one of the only songs in this album that's a pure love song, a relationship type song. There really aren't a lot of that boy-girl kind of things going on in this album. Dennis also wrote "Forever," and that's a good song. But "Only With You," that's a damn good song. And then we lead into the end with "Funky Pretty," which is another Brian song, and it's very Brian. It's a funky song about a pretty girl who's into astrology and how that affects their relationship. Odd time signature near the end, but it's cool with the different alternating vocals. Each guy takes a lead vocal at one point for a line or two, and that's kind of fun to figure out who's singing what. It also comes with a special bonus EP, Mount Vernon and Fairway, a fairy tale, that Brian wrote, and he really wanted that to be the centerpiece of the album, but the guys were like, it's not going to fly, man. And when he heard that, he just gave up. He just stopped caring, and Carl ended up finishing the rest of it, and Jack Riley narrates it. I don't know if I'd call it essential to the package, but it's definitely an interesting listen if you have the time. I'm going to keep this video under 10 minutes. All my reviews I'm going to try to stay under 10 minutes because after that it's pretty damn long. Some fun fact notes about this album: Holland peaked at number 36 in the U.S., which was pretty damn good for a band that wasn't selling too well in the early 70s, late 60s. Did even better than UK, peaked at number 20. "Sailor on Sailor" was released as a single in 1973, and then again in 1975, so go figure, Beach Boys lore. Concluding notes on this album: It's lyrically all poetry. It is a beautifully written album. The lyrics on this album are some of the most surreal and colorful that they've ever had. The imagery that they build, and they play with a lot of surrealism too, which is kind of fun. Playing off themes from the Surf's Up album. Um, a lot of that emotion, a lot of that feeling is present. Musically, it's kind of a little bit scattered. You got some funky stuff, you got piano ballads, you got country, you got soul power, um, but it flows. It flows really well. It's for a band that had two new members and one ex-member, or one member who just left. I mean, Bruce Johnson left by this point, but he did some vocals on one of the songs. He did backup on California, I think. Um, for a band that was going through as much transition as they were, now at this point they were doing some shows opening for the Grateful Dead. They were kind of like an underground grassroots movement type band, for lack of a better term. And this is one of the last albums they put out that shows a progressive artistic statement, moving forward and not resting on their laurels. They were doing something different, and this is a band fully committed to what they were doing, fully committed to accomplishing a goal and a set idea, creating a vision, creating a statement. And that passion is sorely missed after this point, except for a couple of moments on albums following. But as far as an overall cohesive theme, cohesive statement, I mean, Holland, the whole album is a band committed. Um, it's an album about ups and downs, strife, moving forward, um, being basically abandoned in your home country after a few years of low ticket sales, low album sales, poor album reviews. This band was going through a really difficult time. And then when Ricky and Blondie came in, it kind of gave them a little bit of a jolt in the arm to try something different and move on. Um, a lot of the themes, I guess you can say, are similar to Pet Sounds, being, maturity, growing up, finding out about who you are and where you are, what your place is in the world. But this is done by a group of guys in a band that's been through a lot of turmoil and hard times and heartache. But it's a band that doesn't give up and is not going to give up. And it's sad because you see all this hope, all this power in this band of what could have been if they stayed in this vein. They put out a live album during this tour, Beach Boys in Concert, great album. And then Endless Summer came out, and it was a complete 180 step backwards to their early days, and that was their best-selling album since Pet Sounds. And after that, they kind of thought, well, maybe that's what the people want. And it became sort of an oldies act right after that. They put out new albums for another 10 years or so, consecutively. But for the most part, they never matched the vision that Holland had of what could have been. And to some extent that's kind of sad because, a lot of people think of the Beach Boys and they think of them as the ponytail guys from Full House. They don't think about these guys reciting poetry and coming up with really deep, intricate vocal harmonies and really concise melodies that are absolutely stark and beautiful. Nothing compared to their early stuff, but a band that was trying to figure out who they were, basically without their leader, and moving on. So this was a band that was being held back and wanted to move forward, and they saw the sun and they saw their mission. Never fearing, persevering. Sail on, sailor. Jay Guru Dev, as it says in the liner notes. My name is Giggins. This has been Holland by the Beach Boys. Came out in 1973. It was recorded in the summer of 1972 in the Netherlands. All the guys wrote songs on it. All of them sing on it. I can't recommend this album enough. If you're a Beach Boys fan, you need to hear this album. If you've never heard of this album, I highly recommend it. If you're looking for something that is loaded with hits, it's not here. But if you're looking for something that's an artistic statement that you can put on and enjoy the entire album, for its lyrics, for its dense vocal harmonies, for its tight melodies, for its vision, and for its perseverance. This is a persevering album. This is a band that has nothing left to prove and everything to gain, and a bright future ahead, full of optimism. Until Endless Summer would come out. Highly recommend it. Holland, The Beach Boys, 1973. I will be doing more reviews in the future, definitely more frequently, and different bands too, not just the Beach Boys. But I love the Beach Boys, they're one of my favorite bands, and they have a lot of work that people don't know about. So until that time, thanks, Internet.